Welcome to Inside Athletic Training, a podcast from the Professional Baseball Athletic Trainers Society, where Major League and Minor League athletic trainers share insight into athletic training at the highest level. This week on Inside Athletic Training, we sat down with Nick Jensen, who is currently the coordinator of minor league medical for the Milwaukee Brewers. Prior to his current position, Nick worked as a minor league athletic trainer for the Atlanta Braves, Cleveland Indians, and Kansas City Royals. Nick began his career as an athletic training intern with the New York Yankees in 2013. Enjoy the show. Nick, welcome to Inside Athletic Training. We are thrilled to have you on the show for episode 9. We like to start each show by asking our guests if they can share a bit of information with our listeners about the Professional Baseball Athletic Trainers Society. So could you go ahead and share some info with them about what PBATS is and what the society means to you?
I appreciate just the opportunity to be here, Sam. First off, it's pretty cool just having applied through PBATS internships in the past and now having the opportunity to speak. It's pretty cool. It's pretty surreal to think about. And so when I think of PBATS, I basically think of, it's education-based, it's mentorship-based, it's something that's given me the opportunity to really get my foot in the door for me personally in the past. And I just, personally want to pay it forward. So I think that's what PBATS really does. Now that I'm kind of in this realm and seeing that, it's something pretty cool, and I'm just super passionate about this area in general.
Yeah, absolutely. We know a lot of our members were former interns like yourself, and without programs like that, it like you mentioned, it's tough to get in, and it's great when people do and they stick around and really make a career of it. So, speaking of your career, Nick, you're currently the minor league medical coordinator for the Milwaukee Brewers. You've been there for quite a while, and you're extremely passionate about the overall profession of athletic training in general. Before we get into your career, I'd love to learn more a bit about your background and what paths led you to where you are today. So if you want to go ahead and take the listeners through, your background, where you're from, were you an athlete growing up, also where you found your passion for athletic training?
Yeah, of course. So I'm from Flemington, New Jersey, the East Coast. Sport-wise, yeah, I've always played sports. I've always played baseball. I played basketball, whether it be stickball with my dad when I was younger, baseball through high school, pickup games with my friends. Sports were always a huge part of my development. I didn't necessarily watch it on TV as much, but just in general, playing sports is always something big for me. And then kind of like jumping in along those lines, I didn't know athletic training was something I want to fully go into. I at first wanted to do, personal training, potentially look at the physical therapy route. And I'll be honest, I didn't know what athletic training was. I signed up because I thought it was personal training. And I think that's the funny part, is that once you kind of get going and you see what athletic training is about, it's a very rewarding profession and something I was hooked basically as soon as I signed up for it. So I knew sports was something I wanted to do. I didn't know in what capacity. And having gone through, East Carolina, which I'm sure we'll talk about here in a little bit, it was something that I just really fell in love with. And so I'm just super happy that I took that opportunity in East Carolina, and the friends and experiences I've had since then have been something I cherish.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about what it's like getting into the world of professional baseball athletic training at the minor league level, and the path necessary to get from where you started to such a huge role with an organization that you have now. I know you spent time with numerous organizations, the Yankees, the Indians, now Guardians, Royals, Braves, obviously Brewers now. Love to hear more about, how you got to your position today and what that's meant to you.
Yeah, of course. So as you alluded to, I've been with a few different organizations, mainly the Milwaukee Brewers and the Atlanta Braves were full-time positions. The rest were my internships. So I've done, 3 internships here, one with Scott DiFrancesco, Jeremy Heller of the Guardians, and then James Stone with the Royals. And I think the experiences they all gave me was really finding out that, baseball was something for me. This was something that was enjoyable. It was something that I found pleasure in working. I felt like I could be myself in this environment. And I think the coolest thing was, just seeing what opportunities there were. It's pretty exciting to work for a professional baseball organization, and you got to kind of think back of where you were. And it's pretty cool to see that I've had these mentors in the past really help me to get where I'm at. Like I've always had drive, and I kind of knew what I wanted to do. But the biggest thing for me was having those mentors to really, I guess, steer me in the right direction. They were there to support me and make sure, I was fully aware of the time commitment. That's something I know we'll talk about at some point, but baseball is a huge time commitment, and you really get that in the internships. And that's something where, it was huge for me to see, and it didn't scare me away. It was something that I was like, I can't wait to get back into the baseball realm. So those people that helped me, I just mentioned, were hugely beneficial in this and allowing me the opportunity to really get my hands dirty, I guess I could say. And it's something that I really appreciated in the past. I would also say something I could kind of shed light on, and something that I've learned a little bit myself, is that, drive, passion, humility, and just being a good person can go a long way. And those are things I've noticed just my day-to-day here, my day-to-day in the past with other organizations. But end of the day, we're all here to help the athlete, and it's a pretty cool environment. So that's something that, I'm very fortunate to have had those experiences in the past.
Yeah, that's great insight there on your career and what it takes to get to where you are today. And many of our listeners are athletic training students who ultimately would love to be in a position like yourself one day, this far into an awesome career. Can you talk a bit about more what it's like to be the minor league medical coordinator for the Milwaukee Brewers, or for any organization, as I'm sure they're all different? It's a position that I think a lot of people might be a little more unfamiliar with when compared to a head athletic trainer or an assistant or a sports medicine director with a big league club. But I'd love to hear more about, the main duties and responsibilities of your job to start.
Yeah, for sure. And so I like, just think about it now, right? Like, this is a position where you don't get a baseball card during the season. So you don't really have too much, you're behind the scenes with a lot of stuff. And so a quick overview is I oversee 6 full-time staff members, as well as 4 associate athletic trainers, and these are all at 5 different affiliates. So on top of the staff members that I work with, I also have X amount of players on the roster per team, and that'll vary based off of roster availability and injuries and kind of what our front office decides to do. But as a whole, right, like it's a lot of people, and so you're overseeing a lot of things. What I like to look at it as is, I try and give our staff the tools to make the best decisions they can. A lot of times there'll be other information that they're not aware of. So let's say, like, for me, I am in conversations with the front office, with the big league staff, with other coordinators and directors. And so I may have a little bit more information to make decisions than some of the athletic trainers do, boots on the ground. But that's where we kind of marry the two, where I can give them the context of, this player might have X, Y, or Z going on. And so when I get the information from the athletic trainer of this person is injured, or this person is, whatever the scenario might be, we come up with a plan together to provide the appropriate health care for them, and then the appropriate, treatment plan, whether it's a return to play or it's just a maintenance throughout the season. But overall, I look at it as like a liaison between our athletic training staff, our major league team, our front office. I just try and give the bigger picture and help steer our organization in a direction that we feel is the route we want to go. And so that is something where, I just try to be a conduit to that and help our organization win championships at the end of the day. And if along the way I can get some of our athletic trainers to develop on some of their goals, start asking better questions, whatever it might be, that's something that is important to me. And that's something that doesn't really get seen, I think, as a coordinator. That's definitely the behind the scenes look a little bit. But again, overall, it's just the health and safety of all the players and athletic training staff, and I'd say player development staff in general at each affiliate is kind of my role, just a big oversight there.
And it seems like an incredible amount of responsibility, extremely fulfilling. Like you said, you're all in it to ultimately take the Brewers over the hump to win a championship one day. For those wondering, it's a unique position. You've taken a lot of time to get there. Is there a common path that most people in the medical coordinator role take to land at that job, or is it kind of a unique situation to each individual?
I would say it's more or less there's probably one theme. So you more or less have to be in the minor league system prior to getting to a coordinator position. I'm sure there are outliers. I'm sure there are people who have done it the opposite. But for the most part, I think what varies is maybe the length of time in the minor league system. So generally, you're going to work your way up, whether you start as an intern or you start as, a rookie-based level. You're going to work your way up and go from level to level, get the experience, and then ultimately, that's how I got it. I was in AAA with the Atlanta Braves, and I had the opportunity to interview for this coordinator position that had just been created. So that's more or less how it happens. I've seen people go to a coordinator position from a high A position, from a AA, AAA. I've heard of others who just, get in outside. Maybe they've had some college experience as a whatever, like rehab coordinator. They had some other type of like clinical education background there. But for the most part, I would say they're going to be going through the minor league system and just ultimately afford them an opportunity to interview for this position.
Got it. That makes total sense. And I want to touch back on the communication that you mentioned a couple minutes ago. You're managing such a huge role and so many people within the Brewers organization. You have your hands on the pulse of every affiliate. So I'd like to hear more about what the communication is like with, first of all, your major league staff, Scott Behringer, Dave Yeager, and those guys. And also the front office, as you mentioned previously as well.
Yeah, of course. So I'll speak right now for spring training, at least. The communication is basically, end of the day, I don't want surprises to show up on Scott or Dave's door. I don't want our front office to make decisions without the full information to make their best decision. And so right now, it's really just the players that are backing up to the major league team or the players that are potentially backing up, what is their status? And that is something where I don't necessarily want to send someone who is limited over to the major league side to be used. I want them to have a full roster of players that are, 100% available, players that can make an impact. And so it's really just a verbal for me, a verbal daily check-in. Occasionally there'll be an email or two just based off of maybe new information I get. So let's say a player comes back from the WBC recently. I'm able to send over, hey, FYI, completed his orthopedic physical on his return. He's now good to participate in camp again. So right now, it's basically just verbal. We have a morning meeting every day, and that's something where I can make it known that this is what's going on, or just pop over. We're not very far. Just go say hi to Dave and Scott, and just kind of check in with them. During the season, it's the same kind of process. I wouldn't say obviously there's no personal check-in just based off the distance, but there is I don't want them to be surprised of anything. So I give them a heads up on essentially any AAA and high priority AA player. So they're fully aware. Our AAA athletic trainer, Jeff Paxton, is also very involved in this process as well. He's boots on the ground, so he, at the time, has more direct access to the players. So between him and Scott and myself, we have a full picture of what the player history is and kind of what their status is right now. Injuries will be a little different, right? So depending on if it's a 40-man player or a non-40-man player, we will have to communicate a specific way, but at the end of the day, all the information is led back to Scott so that he has all the information he needs to communicate to Craig Counsell or any of the front office staff there making any decisions. So I'd say for right now in spring training, the best part is, they're here. And so I can just walk over and say hello and just catch up on our day after that as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. Listen to a lot of the interviews we've done so far on the show. Is the proximity to the minor league clubs is something that can be a little difficult. We talked to Amanda Lee with the Mariners last week, and she mentioned, she's in Arkansas and she's works for the Mariners, so it's obviously going to be difficult. So that's why spring training is so great to kind of get everyone together, which you mentioned. Going back a little bit to the advice you've received over the years from mentors. If roles were reversed, what is the best advice that you'd give to college students or young professionals looking to get into athletic training in baseball?
Yeah, I've been looking at this question a little bit, and there's probably so much I would really love to say. For me, a lot of it was self-discovery, right? Like going through, making the mistakes, adjusting, figuring out what works, what doesn't work. I will say, just looking back, and others who are potentially looking to get into baseball, is really make sure this is what you want to do. And so that's where I think PBAS is so important, again, because it offers the opportunity for internships. And that is the best pathway to really see if it's something that you really want to sink your teeth in and give it your all. And so it's a tough job. And so being able to bridge that gap and seeing the amount of hours you put in, being able to see, is this something where your personality fits with the staff? You can kind of see if this is a place where you'll be happy. A lot of little things kind of jump into, but if you really want to commit to professional baseball, I would say that, make sure this is really what you want and be clear with what your intentions are. Like my intentions are to get to a major league position, and I try and pass it on to the rest of our staff as well. There's plenty of other staff members in my group that want to get to the major leagues. And so I just really want to be clear with what your goals are. And so I'd say that's probably two. It's just making sure this is really what you want. Because, if you're in a position that you want to be in, you're going to thrive. You're going to be successful. You're going to have your passion and your dedication come out. But being clear and not losing sight of that is something that I definitely think is very important to have and to constantly be thinking about.
Yeah. And speaking of, you mentioned it's a tough job. It's very demanding. And a couple episodes ago, we spoke with Ben Potenziano, who is an assistant athletic trainer with the Miami Marlins. He's been in the game and in the big leagues for a long, long time. And Ben spoke a lot about, providing care for the athletes and how that is not the only thing that you all do. Getting into some more day-to-day and the grind of being a person in your position, can you share a little insight into what a day in the life is for you in spring training?
Yeah, for sure. It gets monotonous day in and day out. For me, I'm here around 6-ish. I prep my notes for the morning meeting. I make sure I have all my ducks in a row of who I want to address, info on players, basically any information I want to address with our staff. And we have multiple morning meetings to prepare for. So about 6:30, we have a staff meeting with the major league side. We discuss any players, and kind of alluding to what I said earlier. I discuss any players that might be backing up or anything that needs to be addressed. After that, we have a staff meeting with my staff, the athletic training group, as well as the rehab, the strength conditioning, and performance nutrition. And we discuss the players in minor league camp. From there, there's an all staff meeting. So I know it sounds like I'm in a lot of meetings all day, but we jump into a staff meeting where I give them the update on the players and who's available on field. And I'm there to answer any questions that may pop up of availability or what a player, his limitations may be. And so from there, we basically are doing treatments in the morning until players go on field. And so there'll be an influx of players coming in versus some who have early work. And so for me, my role is I kind of roam around. I get to know the players. I chat with everybody while they're getting treatment. I see where I can help out. I just get to know them a little bit more. I'll go outside and watch some of the field coverage, make sure as a staff, are we doing the appropriate field coverage? Are we looking at things appropriately? Are we making sure the players who are limited are actually being limited? And there's at least a thought process there outside. So it's more or less just a check-in, making sure our staff has everything they need to be successful. After that, it's more or less game time. Same thing. After I get some work done on the computer, if I have any other meetings that may be thrown on my calendar, I'll go outside and chat with other coordinators and directors and just player development staff to make sure, where can we be better? Where can we be more helpful to the organization? And chat with our athletic trainers, get to know them a little more, ask some questions throughout the day, and just kind of see what's come up. And pretty much after that, it's cleanup, right? It's guys come in, any post-game treatments, they wait for the bus to leave. Maybe we debrief on the day if anything were to pop up with the rest of the athletic training staff. We clean up and then rinse and repeat. I try and do my best to leave work at work as best I can, but others in this coordinator role know that never happens all the time, where you can get a call at 9 o'clock and a player's heading to the hospital and you have to triage and kind of figure out the best plan and be on your computer a little longer. So stuff can pop up always, but I'd say a typical day is, 6-ish, 6 to 6:30 a.m. By the time I leave after game, make sure there's no injuries. It's probably about 5:30 p.m. So that's probably a typical day. And I think, what are we on, like roughly day 30 about now? And I'm feeling every bit of that day 30.
Yeah, that's definitely a grind. We all know from our conversations with, Corey Tremble with the Tigers, Ryan DePamphlo with the D-backs, anyone in any position in this game, in sports medicine is really grinding out now and just waiting to get to the season and go from there. Speaking of the regular season, do you spend most of your time in Arizona at the complex throughout the year?
Yes, I do. Most of my time is here. I'm based out of here. I do travel a little bit. Once spring training ends, I will likely stay here for the first month. Extended spring training is basically those players not making a full-time or a full season roster will stay back in Arizona for basically, it's called extended spring training. So now it's a little longer. I'll stay here for the first month just to kind of make sure we are on the right path. Our staff has everything they need. And then I will travel a little bit. And so my travels will include each affiliate from our low A affiliate all the way to AAA throughout the year. I will make certain trips, basically. I don't want to say, I'm trying to think how best to word this. Basically, I'll make trips that are like higher priority and go see certain players, certain athletic trainers, maybe earlier versus later in the year. But everything basically has a purpose for me going out. Kind of, again, check in on our staff, make sure they're doing everything that we've talked about in spring training and are continuing development plans and things that we have worked on in the year. I do make a trip to Milwaukee. In the past, last year was more or less my first opportunity to kind of make a trip up there and help out the major league staff. So this year, it'll likely be a couple-day stint. I basically shadow Scott Behringer and his staff and just kind of help out where possible. Yeah, that's great that, you're getting up to Milwaukee, but also visiting all the affiliates. I'm sure you're in a unique position, one of the few that gets out to see all those places throughout the year. Like we said before, that takes a ton of passion and love for the profession of athletic training. And when it comes to that passion for what you do, a lot of the people we've spoken with on the podcast have said that seeing an injured player get back on the field and succeeding is something that really means a lot to them. Is there something other than that really drives you and fulfills you, or are you in agreement with the rest that getting someone back on the field healthy is really awesome? That's definitely a huge part of it. And I'll be honest, beginning part of my career, that's where I got my most, the biggest reward for myself. For me, it was instant gratification. You work on a player, and by the time you go off the table or by the time you're done with your therapy session, they're ready to go for the game. You return them in an appropriate manner based off of rehab, and those are really cool things to see. The players appreciate it. I feel like I participated, and I feel like I made impact. But in my role now, I would say that's kind of changed a little bit. For me, what I look forward to and things I kind of take home and get excited about is basically our staff. When I see our athletic training staff developing over the past 3 years, when I see our staff asking questions they haven't asked before, when I see them thinking about problems and coming up with solutions that they haven't in the past couple of years, this is something that I get really passionate about. And it's pretty cool to see. For me, this is the bigger growth, right? Like, I can make an impact one-on-one with a player, but can I teach that? And is that something where my staff, who I've mentioned before, if their goals get to the big leagues, are they on the right path to get there? And that's something where I think making the deeper impact and maybe just longevity-wise, it's something really cool to see, and something where there are other athletic trainers I look up to in baseball who may have a really cool growth tree where they've had athletic trainers that they've developed and are now head athletic trainers as well. And that's something that I want to aspire to. I just want to give back, and I want to see our group be successful.
Yeah, it's really cool. You mentioned those trees of athletic trainers. If you look back at the history of PBATs, you see so many people who are now, in a position of the director of player health or director of sports medicine. So many of those guys today have come from the same trees, which is really cool to see. And you're well on your way to establishing that. Going back a bit, you mentioned East Carolina University a couple of times.
Yeah.
I know continuing education is extremely important for the athletic training profession. We've seen a large number of athletic trainers in professional baseball, including Jamie Reed and a couple of others, come from East Carolina. Wondering what makes that place so special for athletic training and why that program stands out.
Yeah, great question. To be part of a group, and I'm just going to list a few names here because it kind of, for me, it puts things into perspective of how far I've come. right? Like PJ Mainville, Jamie Reed, Scott Behringer, Chad Wolf, Jake Legan, James Ramsdell, one of my first mentors, Zach Womack, right? Like, these are some names that have done some things in baseball, and it's pretty cool to see. What it is about ECU, I felt we had a very clinical heavy experience. I felt by the time I left there, I had a very good sense as to the time commitment it took to be an athletic trainer, what it meant, to be part of a team and all come together and kind of accomplish a similar task. So I think besides that, having Zach Womack there, who's the head athletic trainer / baseball athletic trainer there, he was kind of my first in to PBATS. And that was my first internship first professional internship was with the Yankees. And so he was, hugely instrumental in helping me get there. And so, I don't know. It's a cool place. I'm glad to be part of that tree. And looking back at it, I'm pretty happy to be part of those names. And I'm pretty happy to say I am in close contact with most of that list. So it's pretty cool to see when I look back on it.
Yeah, it really is amazing. I mean, it's not the most recognizable university name out there. And it's awesome to see that there's this little niche of awesome athletic trainers and some legends in the field like Jamie Reed, who have
no doubt
started that tree. So really cool for you to be a part of that. Additionally, you also received your master's from the University of Delaware. Was there something in particular that pushed you to pursue additional education after undergrad?
Yeah. So given the opportunity to get a free master's, more or less, right? Like I was going to work for as a grad assistantship. I also knew I wanted to work baseball. Talking with Zach, my mind wasn't open enough to know how to get into baseball at the time. I was basically relying on him, and I don't think there was an opportunity at the time to be a full-time staff member in professional baseball. So what was next for me was an internship, and I guess grad assistantship is probably a better term for that. And so Delaware offered both. They offered a master's in sports medicine. They offered having the one-on-one with the baseball staff that I would directly oversee. And so that was ultimately what led me there. There were a couple other schools that had reached out to me. One was in softball. Another may not have had baseball for me. Delaware was kind of the perfect school, and I'm super glad I went there. It was close to home. I had a great experience at Delaware. The staff there was hugely part of my growth in general as an athletic trainer and as a person. So I just can't talk highly enough of that school, but I'm very, very glad I made that decision back then.
I just want to touch on that a bit in terms of the sports you worked on in grad school.
Yeah.
Is that something when you do decide to go pursue a graduate degree in athletic training that you get assigned to a single sport for the whole time you're there, or does it kind of mix up a bit?
I think it depends on the school. For me, and this might be a good piece of information for those trying to do a similar role. I made sure baseball was available for a grad student the year I was going. I've sent emails, I would make calls, I'd reach out to friends who had pull in certain organizations or colleges. And I just really wanted to place myself in a position to be successful. And I knew baseball was what I wanted to do. And so not knocking on, a softball position or any other position, but the best way to get baseball experience is to work baseball. And so I really tried to find a school that offered me baseball. And so I had baseball, cross country, and track, I believe in the fall semester. And then once spring hit, basically I was just baseball at that point. And so most schools, I would imagine, do very similar. You don't really see too often a grad student strictly working baseball all year round. You'll likely double up with some other sport when they're not in season.
That's really interesting. And obviously, it's nothing against any other sports. It's that you prioritize baseball. That's what you want to do. So it's cool to see that you were able to make that happen. To wrap things up a bit, I want to give you some time to talk about the Brewers staff. We mentioned Scott Behringer, Dave Yeager, formerly Roger Kaplinger until his well-deserved retirement. But I'd like to hear more about the staff and give you a moment to share any info about the people you work with every day.
Yeah, I appreciate that. There would be a lot of people I would love to comment here. From player development to strength conditioning, to performance nutrition, performance science, psychology, video, tech ops, front office. There's a lot of entities and people that I connect with on a daily basis. And like you said, Scott Behringer, Dave Yeager, and Teresa Lau heading up our major league staff. It's pretty cool to think back and Scott took a chance on me. He was one of the reasons I got into this position in the first place. He knew I had to grow, but he afforded me that opportunity. Dave Yeager, obviously very well known around the baseball community, very passionate about the PBATs and the educational department as well. And that's someone that I lean heavily on. He and I have come up with an education curriculum for our associate athletic trainers. And so that's something where we're very educational based here. And that's something where it's pretty cool to have Dave in my back pocket, basically to help me out and guide me along the way. And then, with Teresa Lau with the big league side, she and I have been friends since I first got here. You've alluded to Roger Kaplinger, who was my boss the first couple of years. Blair Bundy's taken his position, has done a great job overseeing our department as well. Frank Neville and Matt Deal, those are two people that I work closely with as well on the coordinator administrative side. And then lastly, I just really want to, I just want to say I'm proud of our staff. They put a lot of work in, and between Bryn Hester on our rehab side, Jeff Paxton and John Harris in AAA, Andrew Staling in AA, Benny Arroyo, Miles Fish, BJ Downey. We have 4 associate athletic trainers. As you can see, we have a large staff. Everyone participates, and everyone is part of the process here of moving our group forward and hopefully winning a championship. So just, again, super proud of our staff and the work they put in, especially now during spring training where I know we're all tired and just trying to put in as much energy as we can each day.
Yeah. And that's awesome to mention everybody. You guys have so many good people down there in Arizona at the affiliates, at the Big League Cup in Milwaukee. So you guys really do an awesome job. Well, this has been really great. To wrap up today's episode, Nick, we're going to finish with a quick Q&A segment that we call Extra Bases. In this segment, I'm going to ask 4 quick questions for you to share some insight into your favorite things about athletic training. So we'll start off at first base. You've made a handful of stops along the way to your current role with the Brewers. What was your favorite stop in the minor leagues along the way as you worked your way to where you are today?
Yeah, so I would say the first one is going to be when I was in AAA with the Atlanta Braves. I basically based these off of what has been the most beneficial for my career and in the sense of experience, in the sense of growing as a person. And my first year in AAA was a doozy, right? Like there's just so much I didn't know that I had to learn quickly. And that was something where because of that, because of the mistakes I'd made in the past, it's something that I'm not going to forget. And that is something where it was hugely beneficial to my career in general. And honestly, the other is this current role. I got to a position where I had to grow, and a position where I am very grateful for the people here and the support staff I've had to get me to where I am right now. And, honestly, having this conversation with you, Sam, like this is pretty cool. And so I'm just happy about those 2 positions. I know looking back on it, those are ones I'm going to remember forever.
Yeah, that's great. Obviously, the place you started, like you mentioned, AAA with the Braves is always going to be meaningful. And then, hear how much passion you have about the Brewers organization is really cool to see. Moving on to second base, this could be minor league, major league, whatever you choose, even college. What's your favorite stadium to watch a game in?
Sweet. Well, I got one of each for you. So for minor leagues, I got to say Charlotte, North Carolina. A night game there is beautiful. Seeing the backdrop of the sky and the skyline in general of the buildings, it's a really cool spot to be. And then second, obviously I have to say Milwaukee. It's a great ballpark in general, but I would honestly have to say for me it was Philadelphia. That was my first coverage game, and I think it was a surreal part for me, because that is a place where, driving to East Carolina, driving to Delaware, driving down to spring training when I was with the Braves is something that I've seen across I-95. And every time I drive by it, I always think about it and say, one day I'm going to be there. And I think it's pretty cool to say that my first big league experience was at that stadium. And that is also something that I'm also not going to forget. It was a really cool experience for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I agree with you on the Milwaukee aspect. As someone who I was born and raised and spent the first 18 years of my life in Milwaukee, Miller Park, formerly now American Family Field, is an awesome place to enjoy a game in the summer. Moving on to third base here. What's your favorite city to visit on the road?
I honestly just have to say, and any city that allows me to see my family or friends, that for me, that's been the best part of traveling and being in the minor league system, or just being in baseball in general, is you play in a lot of different cities. It allows me the opportunity to stay in contact with friends, stay in contact with family, force those relationships more, just so miss seeing everybody. So it's a great opportunity for me to do that. So honestly, I don't really have a favorite city. Just Philly was great because my dad was there. My current fiance is there. So it was just a great trip for me. So I'd have to go with Philly for right now.
Yeah, it's always, there's a lot of stuff to do in cities, but when it comes down to it, seeing the people you love and like spending time with is always awesome. Moving on to home plate, to wrap things up. Did you ever have a welcome to professional baseball moment at some point during your career?
Yeah, I think being asked to sign baseball cards and memorabilia is something that I was not used to. I remember one day I was pulling out of a stadium, probably the last person to leave, and there were these two kids who had waited for me to sign their baseball card. And after driving, after that and driving home, I just thought back like, man, we really do have an opportunity to make an impact here, and it's pretty cool to just be part of that in general. So that was probably the first time I really was, hey, like I'm in professional baseball. It's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think one of the things I've learned from, over a decade of working with people like you and with PBATs is that, you guys are in the dugout, in the athletic training room, in the clubhouse, and that's something that not many people besides coaches, managers, and players get to do. So it's really an awesome thing to see for all of you. Well, Nick, thanks so much for joining the show.
Yeah.
We really appreciate your time, your dedication to PBATs and the profession of athletic training. Wish you best of luck this coming season to you and all your staff.
I appreciate it, Sam. Thanks again for doing this and everything you do for PBATs in our profession.
And that wraps up this episode. Thank you for listening to Inside Athletic Training, a podcast from the Professional Baseball Athletic Trainers Society, a show for athletic training students, educators, and professionals who want to learn more about life as an athletic trainer in major and minor league baseball. If you've enjoyed the show, head over to pbats.com to gain access to other free resources. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, thanks again for listening.